Let's look at the main method, and we're going to talk about variations of the main method. We can just open a file from Visual Studio. You can just open it from a notepad file as well. It's called mainvariations.cs. I left it as a different namespace so it doesn't conflict with our current namespace within that particular application. Not a big deal. So it's just one class with just some variation information and a lot of comments that you can read, and it's just going to say basically what I'm telling you here. We have three different main methods here. Of course, you can only have one, and this is how this is going to work. These three have different ways of gaining entry into the application. So it's a public method, which means the outside world has access to it, and it's static, which basically means that we can create or work with this particular method that is based off of a class without having to create a new object, without having to use the new keyword to create a new object based on that class. So we'll explain all of that later, but just so you know, you don't get confused by this stuff here. And void is saying that we're not going to be returning any type. We're not going to be returning any variables. This first one's void, second one's void, and you only should use a void if you actually want to return a status code, meaning that if you run a console application, for example, maybe you want to return a return code so that you can log it, or a program that actually initialized that program to begin with can use that return code to see if the action was actually successful or not. And we can just take a peek at that. And then here at the bottom you see return 0. So we're returning an integer. That's an integer. So this is just, if we have that int specified, we have to return something. Otherwise, we don't have to return anything. So we have three different variations. Let's look at the first one here. The first one is just using the strings arguments here, the command line arguments. So you can pass command line arguments to this file, as you'll see in the console application. These are added at the DOS prompt, which is the typical thing you would do when you're running a console application. So we're allowing our entry point to have an entry point into the program. This is where things start up. You run that exe, and then it's actually initializing this using this method. And then you can have command line arguments. Now, if you don't want command line arguments, then you don't pass that string open bracket, end bracket, args. You don't pass it. Then you don't pass any parameters to our main method here. And without a return value, you're going to use void. So that's just how you do it. So just some good points on how to use different variations here. You can also see that you can collapse your methods and your classes and things like that. And also get the help text when you hold your mouse over the ... Now, just further information about this static command. Like I said, you don't have to create the object itself, as we saw in another example here. If we open this file and we open up class 1, you see that we're actually creating a new class here. So this class is not static, so this one is, so that we can actually reference this without creating a new or using that new keyword. So console is another class of the system namespace, and it has a static method called writeLine. So you can see we can use console.writeLine without actually having to create a new console. And then we pass some text. This is just going to output some text to the console screen. Just like that. So that explains that a little bit deeper. It's not very difficult to figure it out or to work with it. You're going to use different variations, but these are the three major variations that you could use, and most people do use something along these lines. Make sure you use a capital M, because C# is case sensitive, and a lowercase m isn't going to work for you.